Morning, chickens. Well, I like doing shelters, and I like doing what I call conicals, like as in cone, teepees, Kwikiups, wigwams. All those are words for houses or homes in their language, usually. They're typical, though. A teepee is typically a teepee, a wigwam. Wigwams can be both domes and cones, but they're usually domes. And there is a special Ojibwe word for the dome versus the conical wigwam. But academic stuff, you know. So here's one of my, what I call I know it's some people would call it a Kwikiup or would call it a teepee, but I call it a Kwikiup. Kwikiup. And that one I actually did tie 3 pieces together. 3 freshly cut, well not freshly cut, but cut poles, and then I added in some other ones, and then I found a bunch of deadfall, and here's a bar, one of them tent bar things that I found locally. On the floor I've got a couple of trash bags back there, and then I got feed bags or deer corn bags here on the floor, and I'll put pine straw and stuff down there, leaves, you know, to build it up. But throw a bunch of stuff on there, maybe a tarp or some plastic or just some leaves and pine needles and stuff like that, and big enough to sleep in. Those are about 7 feet tall. I'm 5'8", and I mean, I can stand up, but I have to bend over in this, but there's plenty of sleeping area in there. So we'll get back to that sometime. And on the ground there, you see a lot of bamboo, tiny bamboos. Those I made a rounded wigwam out of. Now this is what I call a cheapee. A cheapee. It's cheap. They got 7 pieces of bamboo. 4 of them I made a quadrupod, and all I did was wrap that around there. I didn't make any special knots or anything. This one piece right here. Then I added in the other 3 pieces on top, and I got me another one of those Velcro electronic doohickey things that people use. There's some teepee poles hanging up there in the pine trees there. The teepees that I make are based on the Sioux teepee of the book The Indian Teepee by Reginald and Gladys Laubin. They resuscitated the Plains teepee authentically, and they're based on a tripod, but I've modified to where I do a quadrupod. I put up a tripod, and then I add a 4th one as my door, and I don't do the precise stuff of what's recommended, but I do wrap around 4 times, the rope around the teepee 4 times, and there are some traditional things that I do get involved in. I do believe in the sacred part of the directions and the seasons and the times of life and things like that. And, you know, before there was a Bible, you had people that built right into their clothing and built right into their houses, their homes. They built their religion right in there. And if you look at Hogan's from the Navajo, from the Dene properly, and it's not Hogan, it's Huron, and it's not teepee, but it's a teepee. It's when you learn the languages, they're a little bit different than what the anglicized versions are. But so, and then this is a tripod. I'll work on this some other time, just this is another Kwikiup. I know they call them plow or wedges or whatever, but it's another thing. This is my project area right here for the time being. Now, what I'm doing here, I made when I was in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, back in the 80s. Fort Leonard Wood is surrounded by the Mark Twain Forest, and Mark Twain Forest is a lot of, oh gee whiz, what do you call them things? Oak trees everywhere. And when I'd go hunting out in the Mark Twain National Forest, I'd cut down about 8 or 10 oak saplings and put me up a quickie teepee, or what I call now a cheapee. And I made one. See, Fort Leonard Wood, you know, you had to rake your leaves come fall, and I would rake my leaves, and I ended up making one of these teepees for my kids, cheapies for my kids in the backyard. And what I did was I took a bunch of twine like I'm doing here, and I spiraled it down around and filled in the gaps, and ended up getting somebody else's leaf bags that they filled with leaves, saved me a bunch of work, and stuck them around on the outside of the teepee. And I went in one night and spent the night in February, and it was 20 degrees, not too cold, but it was below freezing. And I had thrown a bunch of leaves inside the teepee, inside the cheapee. I really want to be careful about, because to me a teepee is very different from a very specialized conical. Anyway, I went inside and spent the night. I went out all dressed up with long underwear and you know, bundled up for the cold weather and stuff. And boy, come to find out, with all those leaves and all those plastic bags full of leaves around me and stuff, that it wasn't too long when I was getting too hot. 20 degrees. I mean, I'm 12 degrees below freezing, and I have to start taking off my clothes and push the bag open that I pulled over for the door, and found out that I had to okay, so cheapee, see, I know I paid money for these, but I bought them by the hundred, so these Velcro things are probably worth a penny or two. These bamboos I found somebody tossed out of their yard, and then this twine is baling twine, and I found it along the road. So what do I have invested in this? Not, it's very cheap. I bought later on I'll put on the plastic cover, which is one of those painter's drop cloths that cost about what, $1 or $2 or $3 now, you know. Anyway, for cheapy stuff, it doesn't take much money. It's quite inexpensive to make a survival shelter, or a hunting shelter, or whatever your preference is in this world of preferences. And this is all I do. I just kind of throw this twine on there like that, and I'll go round and round until I run out. And if I run out of twine, I'll find some other kind of cordage to finish this up. Is there a way to do this? Yeah, you just do it. I've made a pit house. I have property out in the desert by Waco Tanks, east of El Paso, Texas, and I made a pit house there, and 3 feet deep, because of easy digging in the desert sand. And so then I made a very shallow conical out of sticks that I found, and sticks are hard to get in the desert, but somebody had tossed some out somewhere that I scrounged from the ground somewhere. And I spiraled around with a bunch of twine like this to fill in the gaps, because again, in the desert, that's where the land of Kwikiups is. Well, It takes a lot of brush, a lot of work, and you know, I'm kind of lazy sometimes, like you get that way, and so I just kind of threw together the best thing that I could. Now I think what I'll do is I'll tie this together just for kicks and giggles. What? I'm doing square knots. Big deal, square knots. What the heck? How permanent is this? Well, this isn't so permanent. Like I said, in Fort Leonard Wood, I had all over the national forest where I would hunt in the different areas. I just left the poles up afterwards, thinking I might get back, and I just carried around a sheet of plastic. And what's that other thing? That folding saws. Those folding saws were so good and handy. Pretty light to pack, you know, when you're hunting. I was bow hunting. I bow hunt, and when you do that, it gets to be, you know, a deal to carry around a lot of stuff. So I carried it light. I would even take a blanket or a sleeping bag, because in the front where I had to leave the door kind of wide. Plastic, of course, plastic is fireproof, but I mean, not fireproof. Plastic is flammable. So I'd build a fire, right about out here, and I'd sleep back in there. And I'll tell you, the heat would come in, and I just basically bundle up in double and triple layer of long underwear and stuff, so I wouldn't freeze to death that night, and went from there. Now these twines are come in with a knot, so I'm cutting off the knot, and I'm trying to cut off the knot. There we go. Cutting off the knot with a knife by my face. That's probably not too smart, somebody's going to say, but oh well, what can I tell you? Tie a knot here. We'll just keep going round and round, and eventually we'll get this thing together. Now, I watch a lot of YouTubes. I love YouTube. I love all these survival and bushcraft guys and stuff, and women, like Survival Lily. She's interesting. So now what I got here is another case where I'm just making this up as I go along. Is there a method for me to tell you here? No, there's not. Throw together a tripod, throw a bunch of stuff on, do the best you can, and have a good time. And really get to know the outdoors, really get to know nature. Nature is the best teacher you can have, although you do have to cheat and learn from other humans. Well, humans are nature too, right? So, okay, we're gonna put one more on. I only got one more twine left, so. Ay. Let's put this, I got a Gerber here. Yeah, I tell you, I like to do what I call ground scores, or scavenging. There was apparently when I lived back in San Antonio, Texas, there was there was a box in the road, right in the street, around the corner. And whoop, so I had to go look, right? And I go look, and apparently some angry wife threw out some cheating husband's property. I got, I don't know, 5 or 6 Gerbers or Leatherman, gave most of them away, and got me a guitar holder to hang on my wall, and I don't even know what else. In the land of scrounging and scavenging, you know, where people put stuff out by the trash and, you know, other people get it. Well, I'm one of those guys that goes and gets it. So, you know, it's all good. Okay, I'm not going to be able to finish this, so we'll just have to hang her up for a little while, and then maybe go back and see how this thing turns out. All right, bye-bye.